So guys, so excited this afternoon to be with Schylar Shoates of Moneypenny. We're excited to have Moneypenny in Dalton this Friday as part of the Off the Rails concert series. He is from Dalton. He was raised in the arts in Dalton. And so we just wanted to take a few minutes to ask him some questions about his musical upbringing in Dalton and how that has informed his journey to where he is in Nashville today. So thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it. I appreciate being here
Yeah,
and working with you and Amanda on this gig. We're really looking forward to it.
yeah, for sure. So let's start from the beginning, I guess. Tell us
Sure.
about your entry into the world of music. When did you first pick up the guitar? And when did you know that you were hooked, that like this was the thing for you?
Well, gosh, that's a good question. So I got a guitar for Christmas in maybe 91, but my dad had one in our back shed and I just found it and I couldn't play it. I just kind of held it. And he was like, well, we'll get you a guitar. And so I believe they went to Mason's Music and I got a Wayne's World Stratocaster from the
Nice.
movie. Yes, Excalibur. And I knew how to play Sweet Home Alabama. And so I would just follow everyone around in my house and play Sweet Home Alabama. And it was torturous for all involved. But that's when it, I, for me, I don't know what it's like to be not completely obsessed with something
Hmm.
because that happened at 11, 12. And I was all in at that point. Like everything changed, uh, much to the chagrin of my parents and my grades, uh, because I was just absolutely hooked. And so I don't know what it's like to wonder about what you're going to do in life. I didn't think I could actually get paid to do this, but
Yeah.
I knew that it was just going to be a part of my life. And I was fortunate to be raised in a house with great parents, a great family that they they support. They came around once they
Yeah.
figured out there was no kind of talking me down or getting the guitar out of my hand by hook or crook. Then they were definitely supportive. And then just growing up in Dalton and having the opportunities of playing with friends and family and like the talent shows, the coffee houses. I think we practiced for a coffee house for an entire year before we could play.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
yeah, so that's kind of when it came into my life, and there was no professional musicians like in our family or anything. So I think that's why there was so much questions of, hey, playing the guitar is great, but you gotta have a proper job.
Right.
Uh, so I just kind of kept stiff arming it until something kind of shook loose.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, going back to the coffee shops and the kinds of things that you got involved in here in Dalton, how did growing up in Dalton play into your music? And are there any like teachers or individuals, stuff like that, that you can identify looking back that helped you grow as an artist and become the artist that you are?
Definitely, it was such a blessing to grow up in Dalton. Uh, I, People love music there. Everyone's great. Everyone's supportive. There was never, I don't remember anyone being negative about trying to get better at an instrument,
Mm.
um, except for maybe some people involved where we were rehearsing. The adults had to hear us, and we were horrible. I mean, I sympathize now, uh, and it always had to be loud. There were the opportunities such as coffee house when we played Weezer, the Sweater Song. That was our first public outing. Um, but there was, as I look back now, of course, my dad was really great about picking out songs for my sister and I to perform, to audition for uh, chorus shows with
Yeah.
Andy Baker in high school.
Hmm.
Uh, I think Mr. Baker did a great job teaching a bunch of hooligans. And like I said, it was the opportunities that you had to work for to put something together. They weren't going to hand it to you. They had to say, "All right, great. Here's the auditions." And so my dad would pick out, say, "People Get Ready" by Rod Stewart and Jeff Beck, originally done by Curtis Mayfield. But my dad was like a great A&R guy to say, "You know what? You and your sister, my sister Santa, who's got a great voice, was always singing in plays and doing Patty Sandy songs at church.
Yes.
That little baby, those classics. Uh, he would say, "Hey, this would work really well." Like "You're No Good" by Linda Rat, or like I said, the Jeff Beck thing. You can play the guitar, you can sing, and then
Hmm.
we were like basically Oasis. We'd fight about it, and then we'd go play, and we'd have a good time. Um, so he was kind of the instigator for I think this would work well. And then once we got out and we started playing, people were I can't forget Cami Marcus, who was
Mm.
my I think she was my middle school. She was middle school, and then I think she also ended up maybe at the junior high, but major influence. And she did something really cool for me. My junior senior year of high school, she was doing a play at the middle school. And she went to the teachers and said, "Hey, look, I want Schylar to provide the background music for a play." I think it was East Side Story, West Side.
Hmm.
Sorry, West Side
Well,
Story.
yeah.
Ugh, I got my sides wrong. Um, and she paid me cash. She got me out of school to play the guitar, and I was like,
Hmm.
"Yeah, I can do this. This is
Yeah.
great." So she was very influential in giving me opportunities to play. And then you'd have people like Lamar McClure, who's like a friend of a friend's dad, and he would see us play when we started playing out. It was Davis Bell on drums, and then Daniel Hoagland's our singer. We started playing. Les Hallman was the bassist
Hmm.
then, and he was older than us. I think he was about 74 when we started, and we were just 19. But we would get out and we'd play these songs, and they were new to us. Like, oh, Peter Frampton, and I'd use a talk box.
Yeah.
And I wasn't around. I was around in the '70s for like 30 days. I made it. I was born December 2nd. But he would say, "Hey, you did good with that Jimmy Page song, but you need to go get Jeff Beck Truth and listen to that record." Because no one really had the internet in their homes.
Right.
So you had to go by word of mouth and what people told you was good. And
Hmm.
then there was great record shops like Skydog Records, where you could go buy a bootleg of Led Zeppelin in the Pontiac Dome for $110, uh, and it was great. So there was always that positivity whenever you'd play a chorus show or a coffee house, and then the parents who enjoyed music would say, "Hey, you're doing great. Work on this, check this out." And then the teachers, they basically did a good job by just tolerating us. And working with kids in music now, I know that's about 90% of the gig.
This is true. But that's great that you had, especially that instance of a teacher showing you you can be paid to do this. Like this can be,
Yeah,
a viable
absolutely.
thing. Yeah, that's
And
great.
you get to get out of class
Yeah, even better.
with- without
Even
ending up
better.
in a cop car. Yeah, it's great.
Nice. Um, so you went to MTSU for undergrad. Um, how did you decide on MTSU and what drew you to that program that you participated in undergrad there?
So this is 1998, way back in the olden days, the last century. And my parents were like, "Hey, you got to go to college. You just can't play the guitar." And I'm like, "Why?" I said, "Well, because you've got to get a proper job and you can't live in our basement." So my sister Santa, once again, was already doing music business at Middle Tennessee. And we got this thing called Academic Common Market because at this time, music programs weren't provided in the state of Georgia at any university. So we got in-state tuition. And I got a great story about that. We'll save that for a little bit later. So I found out that they did this program called it's under the Mass Communication College, and it's Recording Industry Production and Technology. They had great studios, and they had people like Eddie Kramer, who engineered Jimi Hendrix and produced Kiss and worked with Led Zeppelin. He would come do seminars. People like Steve Albini, who worked with Nirvana, would come do seminars at the studio. And I'm like, "Well, you can go to college to learn how to make records," which still makes me laugh. Um,
Hmm.
so I was like, "Well, hey, I'll do that. That'll get the parents off my back, and then I can be a functioning adult in society, working towards a goal, and I could just hang out in the studios and make records." And so that's what I did. I trucked on up. Davis Bell and I were roommates, and then in the band together, Money Penny. And it's a great school. What's good about it is that it's like a little, it's in the country, but not really. But you can live in a 3 mile radius, and you can go play shows, and you can make all your mistakes in, play the wrong song, the totally bomb in the middle of a cover, and it's okay. You're not playing, downtown or Third and Lindsley or one of those clubs where hot shot producers hang out. So it was good to get uh, your act together, literally and figuratively.
Yeah. In coming in, like after you did your undergrad and all of that, in moving forward in your career and your journey after that, I see here that you had a mentor, Gene Ford. What was it like working under him, learning from him, and how was that whole part of your journey?
Gene, one of the greatest humans I've met. Him and his wife started the studio I now own, and he hired me back in October of 2006. So what happened was I was working during college. I was teaching guitar at a place called Chambers Guitars. So Joe Chambers, he had 3 shops. Joe founded the Musicians Hall of Fame in downtown, and he was a producer. He worked for, I think, Johnny Paycheck, and he did some country records in the early 80s. So he had a store in Murfreesboro where I taught guitar and piano. It was great because I could take what I was learning in music class and then just teach a 12-year-old, hey, I just learned this, check this out. And then
Yeah.
it really helps reinforce what I was learning. So I taught for him all through college, and then I transferred up to his Cool Springs store, which is adjacent to Brentwood. And then he shut that down in 2005 because he was focusing all his efforts on the Musicians Hall of Fame. And so I started working there, and then I also was working at the YMCA because I just graduated college and, you know, strapped for cash. So you just kind of do odd jobs here and there. The lead singer of Music City Stones, who's playing Dalton in September, which we just
Yeah.
celebrated our 20th anniversary together. Lewis Lee, he got me a job at the Y, and on breaks, I would stop and play a piano. Except I didn't really get breaks. I would just stop and play the piano. So I had one of the nice ladies that worked there, Denise, came up to me and said, "Hey, my niece is looking for a piano instructor. Do you do in-home lessons?" And I said, "Well, I'm teaching here, there a couple days a week, but I could do that." So by doing that, it started to word of mouth kind of got around. This guy will come teach at your house, and then so I ended up having about 25 students that I taught in their houses. And I was so thankful that people trust me to come in their home and teach music, but it wasn't really the most convenient way to teach lessons or effective way. I didn't like being in people's houses, uh, trying to work. It's you could have brother and sister in a fight in the other room, and you're like, "Well, here's
Yeah.
Wonderwall."
Right.
Uh,
But anyway, here's Wonderwall.
yeah. But anyway, here's Wonderwall. So I found Gene because my organ needed some work. I had a Lowry organ, and he shared the storefront with Murph, who does Nashville Pro Hammond. So I met Gene, and I'm like, "Hey, look, this is great. I don't want to be in people's houses anymore. I'll bring you 25 students if I can start next month." And that was October 2006. And then because I was always trying to get the band going, man. It's like, hey, we got to get the band. So all the time in college, I was uh, starting bands, being the hired gun, playing sessions, but I was always trying to get my own music because if I was going to go on the road with someone, I wasn't just going to play what we didn't even know was called pro country at that point. And hey, there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. I have a lot of friends that make their living doing that. I'm not knocking it at all. I just know for me, it wasn't the way I wanted to go be on the road and suffer. I wanted to suffer for my own music
Yeah.
or make people suffer by listening to my own music. So I always taught guitar and piano here while that was happening. And I could never find a gig that was good enough for me to walk away from my schedule because it's like, great, here's 3 weeks of work. And you're like, okay, let me go blow up the schedule I built for the last 5 years for 3 weeks worth of work. So I started a band with a guy named Brian Bandis, who was in a band called Love and Theft. They had a top 10 hit. And then they were the opening act for Taylor Swift's first arena tour. And then
Wow.
he saw me play a gig for another artist I was backing at the time. He's like, look, man, I'm playing this country stuff, but I really want to start a rock and roll band with you. I was like, great, let's do it. So we started a rock and roll band. And then we were putting out records, and we played some shows like Rival Sons. I don't know if we played a show with them, Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown, great local act. But we were getting signed to booking and management. So I was going to step away from what we were doing here. And he called me up and he was like, hey, look, I don't want to go on the road again. I just kind of want to be a dad. Um, so I was like, that's cool. I wish you would have told me that before I bought $2,000 in shirts.
Right.
However, that's a long-winded story. I'm getting to the Gene part. So I then invested. I said, you know what? I told my then girlfriend at the time, who is now my lovely wife, Kristen. Hey, baby. I was like, look, at this point, I was 36. In the original band thing, there's an expiration date. I was like a Spice Girl at that point. No one wants a 36-year-old Spice Girl to try to make it. Not that there's anything wrong with that. So I was like, I'm going to go full in on the production. I'm going to talk to Gene and Kimberly about putting in some recording equipment and doing that. Because I was always the guy who was producing the records, mixing the records, getting payments from the deal. But, hey, we're a band. We're going to split everything 25%. But, there's a behind the music on that coming. So I came to Gene and Kimberly and I was like, hey, I want to put some studio gear in. Let's work out a deal. And they're like, hey, why don't you just buy the business? We want to retire. And that's how I ended up buying Gene Ford Music. And
Yeah.
then, so that was spring of 2015, May. I got engaged May of 2015 because I said, I'm not proposing to my girlfriend this week. I think she's going to say, yes, getting married isn't stressful enough. Let's buy a business. So I proposed and we got engaged May 2015, bought the business October 2015. We rebranded this, got married January 2016 and rebranded the Sky Studios then. And once I became the owner and Gene stepped out, I was really able to see the mentorship role, role of Gene and Kimberly had in my lives. They were these great people. They were always more concerned about what's the right move in the situation as opposed to what's the bottom dollar. And they were very patient with me. There's multiple times they could have canned me. I tell you, 46-year-old me would have definitely canned 29-year-old me.
Oh my
So they're
goodness.
very patient. They gave people ample opportunities and yeah, they're just solid human beings, and the world's a better place because of people like Gene and Kimberly Ford. And my
That's
life's better.
amazing. Yeah,
That's
it
true.
certainly sounds like that. So thinking back to when you cut your first album, what was that like? Just that whole process.
Well, that's the ultimate. If you're a musician, that's the ultimate deal, right? Like, how do you really
Yeah.
sound? Because you can't play and listen back, really. You've got to be to where you can hit play, and then you hear it through the speakers, and that's the truth. Does it sound good? Does it sound bad? And we
Yep.
cut our first record above Agape bookstore downtown. I don't even know if that's there anymore.
I don't think
But there
so.
was a guy, I don't even remember his name, but he was super cool. He played harmonica on us on a song, and we were each in our own little room and we practiced. I mean, relentless. And we were tight to be 16, 17. It was Davis, myself, uh, John Hagler, great friend, bass player. We rehearsed at his house, Davis's house, and our lead singer at the time was Stephen Riddle, who's actually ended up writing some songs that are on the Money Penny record. But it was spring of '96. We walked in and we cut our 4 songs, and I mean, come on, we're the Beatles at that point.
That's awesome.
It
And
was
this was
it
in
was amazing.
Dalton?
Yeah, it was unreal. And
Okay.
then I had the cassette, and uh, you play it for your friends. And we actually gave that cassette. We entered. I think Davis's mom entered us into a contest because the Olympics were, in Atlanta in '96.
Oh, yeah.
But they had the rafting at the Ocoee,
Right.
and she entered us in a contest to. They were looking for local bands to entertain the talents, the athletes at the
Oh, yeah.
what do they call that? The
Like the Olympic Village or whatever.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So we gave that the tape that we won at Agape, and we won, and so we got to play for the Olympic athletes
Oh, that's
at
amazing.
16. Yeah, it was great. We had a meal with athletes in the hall, and then we had security that would we escort us to everywhere. Yeah, we were the we're top dogs in 1997. We were legends in our own mind. It was incredible.
Absolutely. So you now own Sky Studios, as you just said. Um, as the owner of your own studio, how do you view the role of Sky Studios for musicians who come and learn from you and record and all of that? What is the studio's role other than just being a place for them to come and record? It sounds like you really want to pour back into these musicians. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So our tag here is learn, play, create. First, you have to learn the instrument. You have to play it with other people, and then you can create your own music. And there's a lot of great music studios in Nashville. I mean, obviously, it's the music studio of the world, capital of the world. We have great competitors, and so it's important when someone's young and impressionable. One of my main things is here's I don't want to say here's some rules. I would never say it has to be done this way because everybody's their own artist. So I I feel like an artist is in there and we just got to help carve it out.
Mm,
So the tools, everything I think they have is within them, and we just got to show them how to be their best version of that and show them how to do it themselves at some point. And true artists are true artists, and they were born that way. I'm sure
yeah.
you know.
Hmm.
And then I tell parents all the time, I got good news and I got bad news. I'm working with little Johnny. It's his first couple lessons, and he's doing great. And I go, the good news is your kid's a musician. He or she, they got it. The
Hmm.
bad news is your kid's a musician, and their life's going to be a different trajectory than everybody else. But our whole thing is whether it's Cheryl Crow, who brought her kids to the studio,
Oh,
or
wow.
a stalker mom who doesn't know which end to strum on a guitar. You
Hmm.
can walk in the door, you're going to get treated by what I think are the best musicians that teach, because not all great musicians are great teachers, and not all great teachers are great musicians. So
Hmm.
we're very blessed with a great staff here and our wonderful studio manager, Liz, to really be there for the ones that want it. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes we're just glorified babysitters with guitars, and that's cool too. The rent here is not cheap. But when a kid really connects with it and you know you're making a difference and this is their thing, uh, positivity, fun, and what do I wish I knew when I was 13 that
Mm,
I didn't learn until later in life. And and trying to be professional but engaging to show them that there is a path if you want to do this, because the artist's life is not for everyone,
hmm.
not for the weak of mind. You've really got to. Great point. Mr. Andy Baker took me into his office one day, which wasn't normal because I was usually creating havoc and being loud and playing the piano. He'd come in and I'd be banging the piano like Let's Spend the Night Together by the Rolling Stones. But he told me one day, he's like, look, you're about to go to college. Here's the deal. I think you can really make it as a musician, but you're going to have to practice harder than everybody else. And you're going to see your friends. They're going to start getting married. They're going to start getting houses. And sometimes it doesn't work that way for a musician.
Mm,
And that really stuck with me. So everybody that comes in Sky Studios, we're going to treat the best we can. But the ones that really take to it, we're going to make sure and not lie to them, but let them know there is a way, but you got to want it, you got to work for it. And in
hmm.
our phone driven culture, which I'm just as bad as everybody else, where you can have something delivered to your house in 5 minutes. If you don't like it, you don't even have to tape it back up. You can just, our disposable nature of the world we live in now, to get really good at an instrument takes a certain person and a certain skill and dedication that is extremely lacking in society. And I don't think society's better for it. So we really try to instill that it's going to take practice outside of here, and you're going to have to want it. And if it was easy, everybody could do it.
Right. So some of your students have received some pretty big deal scholarships, which is awesome. Some of them have received scholarships to Berklee School of Music and other top music university. So how do you view your role as an arts educator in the world? And I know you kind of alluded to that a little bit in the last question, but just like, how do you view your role in sending these students on their way to continue their journeys?
Good question. I think hopefully being as old as I am now, I've learned which kids, and I say that reverentially, that kids that, they're young men, young women. That's a really tricky age in life, that whole 17
Yeah.
to 18. Like I've got a senior right now I've been working with for 3 years. And, we're getting our guitars out, we're getting in tune. Hey, how's it going? I'm just stressed out. I gotta send in all these applications for college. And I was like, well, hey, cool. Look, you got two parents that love you. I know it's stressful, but we're in America. Things are, you're already born on third base. You don't have to have it all figured out right now,
Mm,
right? It's just do what let your parents guide you, and you're gonna end up okay. But the reason I say that is I end up in a lot of meetings with parents that their kid wants to go into music, and the parents are either, hey, they're all for it, or they're like, hey, we need to know more about it because I'm in finance and my wife's a
right.
lawyer. So I guess I'm a safe long pair to talk to, or I've got them pulled. And I can boil it down really quick for you, Sarah. I because doing this for years, I've sussed it out really quick. So we come in, I talk to the kid, I sit the parents down. It's like, I say, hey, why do you want to go to college for music? Like, well,
Hmm.
I really like music, and Taylor Swift's awesome, and I'm like, okay, yeah, just it's fun, it's fun. And I'm like, mom and dad, this kid doesn't need to go into music.
Mm,
And hey, I can be wrong. Like I'll be wrong at
yeah.
the end of my life, but if I was a betting man, and I'm not, I would bet one of my nicer guitars that person is never going to last more than a year. If a
Hmm.
kid sits down, I say, so why do you want to go to school for music? I have to do this.
Yeah.
Well, you're okay. You're going to make it. So it
Yeah.
really comes down to that. I know it sounds an oversimplification, but it's true. They have to be that bullheaded, like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure out the rest. And that's an artist. That's making the way in the world. That's the parable of the talents. I've got this gift. I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
Now, I know
But
parents want them to have dental and health insurance and
yeah.
not live in their basement. Which I don't know. When I'm home for Money Penny, I can check out my parents' basement. Maybe they've been working on it, so maybe it's a good fit. So
There you
that's
go.
how I would say. Of course, giving everybody the opportunity to let them know it's not easy, and you can't just watch a YouTube tutorial and have it in 5 minutes and here's Wonderwall.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, and I think a lot of parents, they think it is like that because they've never been around it. And of
Yeah.
course, you got to try the music thing. That's like you do a sport, you try an instrument. It's
Yeah.
giving kids a well-rounded uh, uh, opportunities and experiences.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that's how I've helped
And
out my students because the ones that got the scholarship, we already sorted it out 4 years when I started working on them that they're going to do it. And okay, if you're going to do it, then here's what you need to know when you walk in first day.
mm,
And the parents are all on board with that. It's the ones that are like dipping their toe in the water. The best thing I can tell a student right now: do not go to a college and pay $67,000 a year for a songwriting degree. Okay, who's the greatest songwriter of all time? King Paul McCartney got his songwriting degree for 67 grand a year. Now, if you got a free scholarship, that's another thing.
right.
I will never understand that.
Yeah.
That's just me. Because can I go off for a second? I got two
Yes.
things. There's two music industries right now, Sarah. This is what I've learned living in Nashville for 25 years. Two music industries. They're your Taylor Swifts, your uh, insert someone relevant here that I don't know their music. Um, and then there's all these music schools taking kids' monies and parents' money and putting them in debt, thinking there's going to be a job for them when they graduate.
Mm,
When all the people getting out, it's like, well, let me go to my local recording studio and get a. Uh, you got to have the entrepreneurial spirit.
yeah. Yeah.
If you don't have that, then you're just sucker paying $67,000 for a songwriting. You don't have a songwriting degree, do you?
No.
Okay, good. I feel better.
No, that was a good word. That's a good word.
But I needed the life experience that college gave me.
Yeah.
I need to let my prefrontal cortex, which still hasn't fully developed, kind of catch up to the rest of my ego. So it was great for me in that regards. Also, you're making connections with other musicians,
Hmm.
and that's important too. And if that's going to be your vehicle for it, great. I just songwriting. It's like, look, you can get better at it. You can learn how to do it. But you're not going to just. It's not like finance. It's not like you can
Right.
get an MBA in songwriting and like, oh, okay, cool. Let me help you with your 401k now.
Yeah.
Let me write
Yeah.
that middle eight because something I learned in class. You
Hmm.
got it or you don't. And it's either
Yeah.
a way to sharpen what you already have or to learn that you don't. So
Yeah.
anyway, there's not enough recording space for us to finish this conversation.
No, but I love how you can, and you've taken it upon yourself to like help these kids identify that like come through your space. And I think that's really valuable. So it's awesome that you do that.
Well,
Um,
one quick anecdote to that, and you're right, but
yes.
this is where I would never tell anyone they need to stop because they'll never get it. I sometimes would suggest to a parent, hey, if they're not going to practice, why are we here?
Mm,
Um, unless you just want them to have a positive experience once a week with people in a place, and you can go to TJ Maxx. I'm like, well, I'm going to go to TJ Maxx, little Johnny, have fun at guitar, but they're really going to Total
right.
Wine, which that's cool. But there was one time early in my career teaching a student where I was like, this kid is just, he doesn't have the touch, never going to happen. And I'm going to say something. And then the one time I was going to say something, they walked in and they had this lick down and they worked so hard. And I was like, wow. And then they ended up getting a $50,000 scholarship to Berkeley. So, I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
I am not the call maker on what I can do. Now, if they were in a situation where their parents are like, should we spend money on this? And someone's asking me honestly, and I'm not getting any of the money, then I'll say,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, you asked, here's what I think.
Right.
But
Yeah,
usually if
for
they've gotten
sure.
to this spot, it's because they know it's something that could actually work out for their loved one.
Yeah, for sure. So you are a member of several bands. I remember when Music City Stones came to Off the Rails a few years ago.
Yes, and that weird, it's gonna rain. Let's put it underneath let's get
Yep.
staging. Y'all were so awesome that let's get staging. And then it was a beautifully perfect day,
Yes.
and that we
On the
all looked at
stage.
on the stage. But no, it was a great show.
You
We had a good
know,
time. Thanks for having us. Yeah,
yeah.
that's the way it goes.
So since you're a member of like that band and several other bands and projects, what has your experience as a collaborative performance artist taught you just in all these different scenarios with all these different bands?
That you gotta listen to other people, like literally, like
Hmm.
on the instrument. What are they doing? And then when it comes to ideas, everyone has to feel like they've got to say. Uh, and typically, when everyone's open, that's when you get the best results.
Mm,
And you're serving the song and the performance, and not how many licks can I fit in, how many bada 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 can I do,
hmm.
but what's actually going to move people to playing, what's going to be the best. Y- You got to put what you really want compared to what does the song really need.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. That's very true. So circling back around to this Friday, if the rain holds off, which it will, we're going to do every anti-rain dance in existence. What is it like to get Moneypenny back together and y'all just recorded a new album and all this exciting stuff is happening? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, it's been quite. It's like having a conversation with yourself 25 years later.
Mm,
Uh, so the record we just put out, there's a disc deluxe version of our debut album called Watch for the Sun. We spent 18 months making it between 2002 to 2003. We used 8 different studios, including Quad, where Neil Young recorded Harvest, Ronnie Millsap studio at Middle Tennessee. Our co-producer Dave McAllister, we used his studio a lot, Mix Fix in Murfreesboro. And I mean, this was our Sergeant Pepper, right?
Oh yeah.
And then, of course, we spent 18 months doing it. I put way too many guitars on it and overproduced it, overcooked it. And then we broke up the week we finished it in true rock and
Mm,
roll fashion. So that album has sat on a hard drive for 22 years.
wow.
And when I saw how much money Oasis was going to make on their reunion, I was like, well, let's get the machine back going, right? Because we've threatened to do Moneypenny before. Um, and then I was like, okay, let me call the guys, see if they're into it. And everybody was at a place where it was the right time and everyone had the right attitude about it. So we pulled the songs out from the hard drive. I remastered it. I ended up finding some tapes in my storage, like literally cassette tapes, transferring those for the second disc because I wanted to give the best experience of people that would come, what it was like to be in Moneypenny in 2002, 2003, with some live performances, some demos, how the songs
Yeah.
developed. And it was, like looking at old family photos, and
Yeah.
it was very interesting. But we rehearsed all spring. We're really tight. We got Christian Rod on bass, Daniel Hoagland on vocals, Davis Ball on drums, myself on guitar, and then we got a new young whippersnapper named Ryan Romano helping us out on keyboards. And we played Summerfest with Peter Dante from the Adam Sandler movies. He's I guess he manages bands now, and he's touring right now, and he loved it. He asked us to join the tour after this. He gave me a big hug. He's like, "You guys are great, man. You got to join the tour." And
That's
uh,
awesome.
yeah, and Daniel's like, "I have a real job. And I'm like, I can't leave to go on tour right now. It's our
Right.
first gig in 20 years, man. Um, but it was cool to get the record out and to have people been really touched by the people that heard it, that made the effort to come to our first show. So everything on that record, which is all on streaming platforms now, is all like vintage 2002 to 2003 mixes.
That's
Uh,
cool.
yeah, we had my buddy Dean Thomasek do a great cover for it. And I wanted to do the double disc so you could listen to the record in its entirety, but also some people, maybe if they remember our first EP that was on sale at the Sound Shop in the mall
Nice.
in 1999 when we were playing
Love it.
the Friday at 5 at the Trade Center.
Nice.
We opened for Charlie Daniels back then in 2000. So once again, the community of Dalton has always been great to us, always been supportive, always been uh, very eager to open to hearing what we have to say. And it's kind of funny playing these songs again because they were written from the angsty mindset of a 20-year-old who had no struggles in their life. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, I don't know, it's like putting on an old costume that barely fits.
Yeah.
But we're having fun. I haven't laughed more in the last 5 rehearsals. I've laughed harder than I think I ever have in my whole entire life. So we're really looking forward to Friday. It's going to be 45 minutes of rock and roll antics. We are playing, I think, 6 originals. We got 3 covers coming up. Everything ranging from Led Zeppelin to some Black Crowes, maybe some Faces. Um, but it's cool. It's the 90s are
Yeah.
back.
They are in multiple ways for sure. That's awesome that you were able to get the original recordings and just like touch them up a little bit and release them that way. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Love that.
it wasn't. And what was cool about it is, if I can say, oh, Moneypenny, we were a band that weren't using a click track. You can really tell
Mm,
in some songs, but we went to the studio, we played the songs, I put some solos on it, we doubled some vocals, we put some percussion on it, and that's the record. There was no computer that was shifting
mm,
things around. There was no, every note on that record was either a human being singing or a human being playing in front of a microphone.
love
And
that.
22 years later, I can tell you that's a rarity.
Yeah.
And
Oh, for
I've,
sure.
I've had some people say that, wow, it just feels different. And I'm like, well, yeah, because it's not gridded out perfectly. It's not everything's in tune. I mean, you could tell everything's not in tune, yeah, but it's rock and roll. It's
Yeah.
it's 5 dudes going for it.
Yep.
And I appreciate that. So it was good to go back and say, you know what, this is worthy, I think, of people taking the time to listen to this record.
Yeah. Love that. Real raw rock and roll. Here for it. Here
That's
for
what,
it.
yeah, absolutely. That's what Moneypenny was and is.
Nice. So as we wrap up, what words of wisdom can you offer young musicians of Dalton who aspire to have a career in the arts or a career in music?
Find someone with a computer that can perfectly tune your stuff, put it to a grid. No, I'm kidding. Um, there's a time to use the tools of today, social media, YouTube, and that time is after you've learned your craft well enough to put yourself out there to be judged on the merit of your music. Focus on the music first.
Mm,
But we all love a sharp haircut, you know. But I see so much focus on content. I'm a
mhm,
content creator. I'm an influencer and a guitar player. Well, jack of all trades, master of none.
mhm.
Really get it down and make sure you're in it for the long haul because it's not the path of least resistance. Um, and most of everything, most things people are telling you, you shouldn't do that. They're probably right. But, if you were going to listen to them, why would you even pick up the guitar in the first place or
Mhm.
piano? So it's dedicating your life to knowing that you'll never arrive, you'll never master it, uh, but that fascination is what keeps you picking up and going back to it. So that's my recommendation. Focus on the music, put all the technology, the AI stuff after it. Make the best music you can.
Yeah. Love that. Another good word. Another good word. Well, we are so looking forward to Friday. So you guys go on at 7:30 p.m. at Burr Park. You guys don't miss out
Good to
on it.
know.
Mark your calendars. You'll be getting an email from me with all those details later this afternoon,
All
by the
right,
way.
yeah, it's going to be loud and proud. It's going to be
Yes.
loud and rocking, and hopefully no one sprains a knee in our old age.
We can have paramedics on standby if that helps.
We're going to need them. Yeah, exactly.
That's
It'll be
great.
great. Well, thank you for
Um,
having us. Thank you so much for being willing to listen to me ramble.
oh
I'm
no, it's
excited to
been
play
great.
some rock and roll with my brothers in arms, and
Yes.
it's going to be a fun time. And Dalton, I can't wait to see a bunch of people and hug some necks
Yes.
and thank everyone personally and in person how much their support has meant to me over the years because I really feel like I couldn't come from a better place for the arts and what the Creative Arts Guild is doing and the way that y'all give a place for young musicians to come and such a great venue as well. I mean, Burr Park's killer. I mean, that's just a great spot. And everyone's
Yeah.
there and everyone has the right attitude and everyone's working for the right reasons.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you. Well, tell us
Thank you.
to wrap up, tell us where we can find out more about your studio, where we can hear Moneypenny's music, all of those things.
Great. So Moneypenny Watch for the Sun Deluxe Edition is on wherever you stream fine music. Any platform, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, YouTube, it's all there. Uh, First disc is the original 12-song album. And then the second disc has demos, live performances, our first EP in succession. So you can go back and check that out. Sky Studios, you can go to www.skystudiostn.com. So www.skystudiostn.com and read all about our fabulous instructors and the studio here, and how we do lessons and how we do recording. My favorite part, what kind of gear, and
Yeah.
it's really a fortunate thing to be able to affect people in a positive manner with music and help solidify the next generation and see them catch fire for what this great thing music is and what a gift and blessing music is.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you for everything you do as an arts educator. We love to
Oh,
support you
hey,
in everything that you do.
you're very kind. Thank you. I'm honored to do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me today, Schylar. Really appreciate it.